Hi there, and welcome to another one of my classic reviews. And in this video I'm talking about There Will Be Blood, the film from the 21st century that I think is probably the best made of the bunch. It is incredibly put together in terms of its technical prowess. Every single shot, every single music beat, all the performances, they are amazing. There are films that I have a preference towards, but I can't deny how spectacularly put together this piece is. It is such a genius work, a film that is so interesting, with so much to analyse, and the fact that it is so incredibly well made just makes it all the more watchable. So, the first thing I want to mention just instantly is just the fantastic music from There Will Be Blood, which is slow and ominous, and it's really there. When it's there, it's loud, and when it plays, it captures the entire film. It brings tension to lonely landscapes, and that's kind of the crux of what There Will Be Blood is. It's kind of tension in like this kind of edge of the world style thing. Daniel Day-Lewis is perfect in this movie. This might be the best performance in cinema history. It's certainly up there. It's certainly in the top 10. Like he is transformative in his role here as the man Daniel Plainview. So Daniel Plainview is such a fascinating character because Daniel Plainview kind of represents a point in time where capitalism kind of reached the frontier in the sense of now business was there. Now it wasn't just individual farmers. Now it wasn't collective. Now it wasn't communities. Now it was individuals are going to go and make money on the edge of the world. And There Will Be Blood is about that moment in time when capitalism went from being present in communities in a communal sense to being national, to being global, to being that path. It inverted any collectivist sentiment that capitalism had and became individualistic. Now, I'm not saying There Will Be Blood is necessarily about capitalism per se. It could just be a pure character study. But I think at the end of the day, it captures that really important point, which is that capitalism as we know it was founded by people like Daniel Plainview, in the sense of they moved it from being a system to break away from feudalism and monarchy to a system that laid the groundwork for the corporate life we live today, where we're all individuals amongst a big society. There's a moment where Daniel gives a speech to a community where he's going to dig oil from, and he's building this community around them, which is essentially how capitalism worked back then, in the sense of people would build communities for their mill, for their factory, for their oil well. And he has this moment where he tells them all the education and the hope and prosperity that he's going to give them. And then the oil well itself is opened, and it's shot like it's a thing of beauty, like it's a source of happiness. But what the film never gets around to telling us and showing us is if he ever keeps those promises that he provides. And I think that's kind of the crux of the film, is he has these promises, he has this will, and he will get what he wants, however he wants to do it. But does anyone else benefit besides him? The film is about him as kind of this evil in a sense, because he doesn't trust anyone. He only values power and freedom itself comes from that power, and etc. And he views that hierarchical system of him being above it all as kind of his God-given right, even though the religious aspect of this plays in a very interesting way that I'll get to in a bit. The aspect of him being the only person who can do what he does is exactly what he preaches. He talks about not seeing good in anyone else. His only son is someone who he's pretty passive towards, it seems. And when his son goes deaf, it's perfect opportunity for him. Now his son never needs to hear his father say, "I love you," because Daniel clearly doesn't love his son. Or maybe he does, but it's vague. And then we have this whole thing, this whole tapestry of the American dream kind of playing out amongst all this. Daniel talks about him being the only person who can get the oil from beneath the ground. He's the only man who can do this. It's about his manifest destiny, his quest. And he is, in a way, a pure evil, but he's also, in a way, a mindset that is going to get more dominant in the communities that he exists within, and he is going to become the norm, which is kind of why when the film jumps later on to 30 years later, we've moved forward in time to a point where he now doesn't even need to work anymore. The film used to have montages of people working. The film is kind of a montage of meritocracy to some extent, but in that final act, Now he's just wealthy, he's just sitting around, he's a fancy house, kind of the miracles of capitalism. His money's making money. He's lost any sense of hard work that he originally had. The film opens with this fantastic opening section, which has no words for like 15 minutes. It's just sound effects and Daniel working really hard. And it's all about this tension. It's about darkness, and the film finds beautiful images within this darkness. But that's essentially all it is, and it's him working hard. And then later on, we see that he isn't working anymore. And what's also interesting as well is the film focuses heavily on religion for a lot of it, which, you know, famously is like the opium of the masses, etc. And Daniel doesn't like religion, and part of that is because religion is essentially the only thing he has no power over. Daniel doesn't like unearned power, and God seemingly hasn't earned his power. And beyond that, religion is something that doesn't require money, it requires belief. You don't work to be religious, you're just religious, you just believe it, you're just religious. And so Daniel views that in a lesser sense. And later on, when we jump in time, we have this whole thing which is now there's bowling alleys and there's talk of Hollywood and radio, and now entertainment is picking off. And the film is about religious decline in a way, because it starts off with religion being heavily a part of the film, and then later on the religious characters are not doing so well. So religious is declining, and in a way we've gone from religion as the opium of the masses to entertainment as the opium of the masses, and that allows a whole new era of consumer capitalism to grow. So religion plays a key role here because of the character of Eli, played by Paul Dano, who is a character who's devoutly religious and who is essentially Daniel's antagonist, because Eli devoutly believes and he wants power too, but whereas Daniel's getting his power through capitalism and money, Eli's getting it through religion and through convincing people that what he talks about is true, and through attempting to get people on to buy into the idea that he is someone who is holy and someone who is fantastic. And Daniel doesn't like opposing power. In fact, both Daniel and Eli have brothers, and in both sets of brothers there is one smart brother and one brother who's an idiot and who picks the wrong path basically and ends up destitute and not doing very well. And in Daniel's set, Daniel's the smart one, and in Eli's set, Eli's the dumb one. And so they end up with this conflict. But rather ironically, Eli is the only person to ever get won over on Daniel, because Eli baptizes Daniel in a very passive-aggressive, scolding manner. And that sticks with Daniel. That's why Daniel hates him. And that's why when you get to the very end, we have this famous confrontation between Eli and Daniel. There Will Be Blood is a masterpiece. It's a technical masterpiece. It's also just thematically so rich, so dense, so intriguing. You could literally talk about it for ages and find new meanings all the time. But it's just so watchable. Daniel Day-Lewis is peerless in this film. And There Will Be Blood is such a masterpiece. Surely most people have seen it by now. If you haven't, you really, really should. So that's what I think of There Will Be Blood. If you've seen it, I'd love to hear your thoughts, so please leave me a comment. If you like this video, please give it a like. If you want to hear more of my thoughts, you can subscribe, or you can follow me on Letterboxd, link in the description. Thanks for watching, and There Will Be Blood is just a classic. I'm finished.